I want to tell you a quick story. This is John. I met John quite a while ago. When I met him, John was stuck in the rat race by his own doing. John's a dentist and owns his own practice. John had very little savings. John didn't see a way to ever stop working. John felt like he was in a financial prison because he had to work. John wanted to be free. Some of you can probably relate to John's situation. How did John get in this position? When John graduated from high school, he had a few goals. He wanted to help people and do good in the world. He wanted to make his parents proud. He wanted to make money and have a nice lifestyle. He decided he wanted to be a dentist. John went on to college. First thing he had to do was take on student loans. He had to live off credit cards. He liked to party like most college students and spent money freely. But he did really well in school and went on to dental college. He had to take out more student loans. He put more debt on his credit cards. He met his future wife and got engaged. Does this sound familiar? John graduated and went to work for a dental practice. He paid for his wedding. He took out a mortgage to buy a house. He was working hard, but still felt he had to make more money. His financial advisor told him to start his own practice and stop making other people money. John started his own dental practice. He took another loan and bought a building for this practice. They had kids and got a family dog. He was feeling the pressure. He had a family to take care of now. He was building these walls around himself, creating more and more pressure. He felt exhausted and was too busy with no end in sight. He was trapped in the rat race. He was worried about savings, paying for cars, and his daughter's college and weddings. He was in financial prison and couldn't get out of it. John did what he thought was right. He read about investing and talked with his financial advisor. He put money with a stockbroker who gave him bad advice with no real gain. He bought a rental house, but it had too many problems and he lost money. He put money in an IRA, but the amount was too small and he wouldn't see it for 30 years. That's when I met John. John was starting to have bigger problems. He was having problems with his hands tightening and shaking. He was having a harder time working. John found that he was developing arthritis. John needed to find a solution. John heard about Darwin German real estate investments. John attended one of our meetings. John was excited about the opportunities. Passive investing, leveraging Darwin's experience, DGRE's great track record. John met with Darwin. Darwin explained what he did and how. John had $150,000 to invest at the time. Darwin and John came up with a plan. Invest $50,000 in every deal. Invest the $150,000 he had now. Spread it out between 3 deals. Save another $50,000 per year to invest. Reinvest any positive cash flow, sales, and refinance proceeds. Keep working. How John escapes the rat race. Year 1, he invests $50,000 in The Crossing. His balance is now negative $50,000. Year 2, he invests $50,000 in Shadowwood and $50,000 in Serrano Ranch. His running balance is now negative $150,000. Year 3, he invests $50,000 in Hidden Oaks and $50,000 in Pioneer Creek. His running balance is now negative $250,000. Year 4, no investments were made because DGRE did not purchase any properties. His running balance remains negative $250,000. Year 5, he invests $50,000 in Valencia Park. His running balance is now negative $300,000. Year 6, he invests $50,000 in Wheatland and $50,000 in Crossing 2. John receives $224,550 back through regular distributions and the sale of property. His running balance is now negative $175,450. At this point, John is self-funding from the cash flow he's receiving. Year 7, he invests $50,000 in Northridge and $50,000 in Park Row. John receives $104,435 back through regular distributions and the sale of property. His running balance is now negative $171,015. Year 8, he invests $50,000 in Woodwind, $50,000 in Hazelwood, and $50,000 in Sunset. John receives $76,080 back through regular distributions and the sale of property. His running balance is now negative $244,935. Year 9. He invests $50,000 in Valencia 2, Villa Creek, Hale Nanny, and Tribeca for a total of $200,000. John receives $181,660 back through regular distributions and the sale of property. His running balance is now negative $263,275. Year 10. He invests $50,000 in Las Lomas, Riverbend, Brookside, and Ridgemar for a total of $200,000. John receives $262,630 back through regular distributions and the sale of property. His running balance is now negative $200,654. Year 11. He invests $50,000 in Amber Vista and $50,000 in 1019. John receives $238,490 back through regular distributions and the sale of property. His running balance is negative $62,155. Year 12. He invests $50,000 in Kanani and $50,000 in Silver Creek. John receives $210,354 back through regular distributions and the sale of property. His running balance is positive $48,199. John's current position. Maximum out-of-pocket investment, $300,000. All investments self-funded after the first 6 investments in 5 years. 25 total projects, or 2 per year. 12 sold projects, 13 current projects. Internal rate of return of 17% per year. 116% of cash returned after reinvesting in 19 projects. $1 million in retained equity. What if John invested in every other deal, but we only modeled the best performers? Maximum out-of-pocket investment, $200,000 versus $300,000. Self-funded after 9 deals versus 6, in 10 years versus 5. 13 total projects versus 25, 7 sold projects versus 12, 6 current projects versus 13. IRR of 18.8% versus 17%. Retained equity of $600,000 versus $1 million. John saved $100,000 out of pocket, but it cost him $400,000 in retained equity. What if John invested in every other deal, but we only modeled the lowest performers? Maximum out-of-pocket investment, $179,000 versus $200,000 versus $300,000. Never self-funded versus 6, 10 versus 5. 13 total projects versus 25. 6 sold projects versus 7 versus 12. 7 current projects versus 6 versus 13. IRR of 13.9% versus 18.8% versus 17%. Retained equity of $425,000 versus $600,000 versus $1 million. John saved $121,000 out of pocket, but it cost him $675,000 in retained equity. John's plan of action. Invest in every deal. Invest the $150,000 he had on hand. Fund future investments from working and saving cash flow from other deals. Reinvest any cash flow from distributions, sales, and refinance proceeds. The results of John's plan of action. Now John has a $1 million nest egg that provides tax benefits and cash flow. John calls that freedom.